Well, a happy new year to all of our viewers and welcome back. Now, to people who are watching live and also the far greater number of people who watch later on the various platforms. So welcome, saying a happy new year. We're into election year 2021. We're not quite sure when the election is going to be, maybe in May, maybe it'll be delayed. There are discussions ongoing about that. We're in the process of training our election candidates ready so we can cover all of the regions in Scotland. Everyone in Scotland will have the opportunity to vote for the Scottish Family Party in the elections this year. As far as the delay is concerned, we think having a delay would be fairer because at the moment Nicola Sturgeon's on TV all day and we're not even allowed to stand outside the TV studio with a placard. So the limitations on campaigning would be very restrictive for a party such as ourselves. So we would rather wait until September, but if it goes ahead in May, we're ready to come out fighting. Right, just about some of the things coming up on the live stream. Next week, we've got Alex Thompson, who is a reporter, a sort of journalist with UK Column. And our topic's going to be an unusual one next week. We're going to talk about satanic ritual abuse that some people think is quite widespread in Britain. Other people are more skeptical. You might have heard of the Wilfred Wong case. I won't go into details now, but a very interesting topic. We'll maybe have slightly different perspectives on it, but we're going to discuss that, and I'm sure you'll find that very interesting. The week after that, we've got someone to come on to debate. You know how I complain that I can never get anyone to come on and debate any issues. Well, on the 20th of January, we have got someone coming on to debate, and they are going to defend the government's rshp.scot sex education resources. Now, I think that's a pretty brave thing to do. So someone's going to come on and we're going to have a discussion about that. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, at the start of this year, we're going to do a mass invite to dozens of organizations and individuals, inviting them to come and debate with us. Because, as I say, it is so hot. So it's partly to see who we can get to come and debate, but partly just to show how reluctant a lot of organizations and individuals are to actually come and enter into face-to-face dialogue. So one more thing that's coming up soon. You'll have heard me mention from time to time my case with the General Teaching Council for Scotland, where they're deciding whether or not to strike me off for saying that children need a mum and a dad, ideally. And there's also there've been issues with the police as well. I mean, when this story is told, you're going to be absolutely amazed at what's gone on through this whole saga. It's the tale of all tales. But that's going to come to a head, all being well, early next month. So not too long before you'll be able to hear about this frankly amazing sequence of events that's taken place. Now, turning to this evening, we plan to have this show just before Christmas, but one of the panelists wasn't feeling well, so we had to change the topic. But this evening, we've got Belinda Brown and Phil Tanzer with us to talk about so-called conversion therapy. It's a very hot topic. Governments around the world, including in the UK and in Scotland, are considering or moving towards making it a criminal offence to counsel people with regard to their sexuality in terms of trying to change sexuality or move away from a type of sexual engagement. Now, Belinda has researched this topic quite extensively. She's had 3 excellent articles on the Conservative Woman website about it. So she's got a lot of theoretical understanding of this. And Phil brings his personal experience, but also brings a lot of intellectual analysis as well. He's very much a thinker. So this is going to be a very interesting discussion between them. So welcome to Phil. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Richard. Always nice.
Up there in Durness. And Belinda's just taken her seat. I can just see an empty chair on the screen at the moment. She's just about to appear. Right, here she is. Now, Belinda's heating isn't working, which you might have guessed from her attire. So welcome to Belinda.
Sorry, hello.
Well, happy New Year to you.
Yeah, no, you too. So, hello.
Right, now this evening, as promised, I'm going to disappear from the screen and leave Phil and Belinda to talk among themselves. I'll put comments up as usual, so do put comments in and we'll put those to Phil and Belinda and invite them to respond to them. But just to kick things off, actually before that, we've got a bit of feedback from somewhere. I'm not sure whichever. Maybe you could turn your volume down.
I'm going to check. Could it be me? Hold on.
That's better, is it?
No. I was listening to. Let me just check. I was listening. Is it gone now?
No. If you just turn your volume down.
Okay.
I'll do the same.
As usual, this was fine 10 minutes ago, but we'll be there very, very shortly.
How is this? Is this better?
Yeah, Phil, I think you're fine, Phil. I think it's from Belinda.
I'll just speak and see if there's still that feedback. Is it still there?
That's better, I think. That's better.
Okay.
Right, we're ready to fire away. So I'll open up. With the first, I think a good place to start would just be to define conversion therapy so that everyone listening is clear about what we're talking about. So over to you about what is conversion therapy.
Okay, well, conversion therapy is an expression used to demonize any attempts by anyone who has some kind of same-sex attraction, any attempt to alter that in any way in the direction of heterosexuality, and be either through counseling or just religious participation or whatever, but any desire to move away from homosexual attraction is called conversion therapy.
So if we just come in, Belinda, I think if you could put your headphones on.
Yeah, let's try that.
Turn your volume down.
Feedback, isn't there? Hold on, let's give this a try. Sorry about that.
Can you turn your speaker volume? Turn your speakers off.
Sorry about this. What should I? What should I tell? Sorry.
Your speakers. Turn the speakers off. Or the volume down.
Okay.
It should give you a choice between speakers or headphones, and then you click on headphones.
Yeah,
Or just unplug your speakers.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay, sorry about this. I'll just try to find my speakers. I can't actually see where to find my speakers. Just a moment.
Is there a volume control on them, on the speakers themselves?
Oh, there. Oh, yeah. Oh, that little sign. Okay, that little sign. Yeah, I've turned that one down already. Is this any better?
Yes,
No.
I think it is. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, it's really, the term conversion therapy is it's used to demonize any attempts to move away from homosexuality, and it's underpinned by strong political motivations, which we can discuss later. That's really it's a term created by radical gender ideologues.
Can I ask you, Belinda, what are the roots of conversion therapy? So where were the first where was it first used, and is there an evolution in conversion therapy?
Sorry, there's really bad feedback. I just don't know what's causing it. Can you hear it, or is it just me? If you can't hear it, then all's okay.
Yeah, we can hear it. Are your speakers? Can you just pull out the cable from them? Disconnect them from your computer.
I put out my. Okay, let me look. I'm putting this. My headphones are in the right place. I am sorry. The speakers. It's.
Can you just pull out the cable? Just pull out the cable from the speakers.
I don't have. I mean, the speakers are just
built in, right? Okay.
Built in. I don't have separate speakers. They're just built into my machine.
Would it make sense to log out real quick and log back in? In the meantime, Richard and we can talk. But when you log back in, leave the headphones in, because then it might recognize them automatically.
Yeah, I'm just really worried because my logging out and logging back in it'll take about 10 minutes. So I'm just going to see. How about if you two chat, and I'm going to look and see if I can find some controls that I can. I'm going to look into my settings and all that.
If you turn your volume down as low as you can, but you can still hear it as low as you can.
Let's try that. Let's try that. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Well, it's whether you can hear us that's important.
I can. Okay, I can hear you. Can you speak?
Yes, I'll keep speaking, and you can turn the volume down and down and down, and keep turning it down and down.
Yeah, I can still hear you. It's really low now. The volume's really low. Can you hear me?
Right, and I think we haven't got feedback now, have we? Say something, Belinda.
Sorry.
I think we're okay now. I think we're okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So I think the origins. I mean, this is the thing, that there was really unpleasant, horrible conversion therapy. If you look into it, in the early days, there was such a thing. And, you know, just as the treatment of depression could involve lobotomy or electric shock therapy, so there was homosexuality was regarded as a psychological and was subject to these very harsh treatments. But
am I correct to assume that at that time homosexuality was in parts also still illegal?
I have to say that I've been at you know, I haven't done a thorough research of the whole history. I've read a little bit about the roots of it, so you might know more about when the history of homosexuality and when it was seen as illegal, when it was illegal and legalized. I'm not quite sure about that. I have to be honest. I've looked more at.
So I think, and I hope I'm not incorrect with that, but especially in America, one version of conversion therapy was literal like camps, like therapy camps where especially also very young people, so teenager, underage people, were forced to attend, often by the parents or by faith communities, to pretty much rid them of their sins. And I think that included a lot of actually breaking people's personality instead of looking what's best for the person, or if they actually have an issue. So I think these are the really dark and also heartbreaking roots of parts of conversion therapy, because as far as I know, there have been suicides and real issues also when people were forced into marriages where they didn't actually feel love, which can be very destructive for both partners and for the future of that relationship.
Yeah, it is very important to draw attention to all of that, because it did have this dark background. But in the same way that other forms of therapy have moved on, you know, we don't look at what used to happen with other things and say, oh, you know, we shouldn't, you know, people with depression should just carry on with their depression or whatever. You know, that's not what we're talking about anymore, but that is used. And I mean, it is the case, you know, it is the case that there will still be pressures on people, you know, to reject their homosexuality or whatever. And you know, these things are wrong and bad, and they're just not helpful. But what we're talking about here is more what you have is people who want to have some kind of personal change, you know, and this can be in so many dimensions of one's sexuality. You know, however your sexuality is built up, you might have issues that you want to tackle or you want to deal with, and you see a counselor and you deal with whatever is the particular thing you want to deal with. But if what you want to deal with is an attraction to the same sex, then you will be told, well, you must just accept this, who you are, part of who you are. Why do you even want to change this? And I think that there was a reference to the American Psychological Association suggesting that, if a psychologist was faced with someone who wanted to change, the counselor or psychologist should explore them changing their religion. For example, if their religion was the cause of them having difficulty with being same-sex attracted, then they should change their religion. Or if their marriage, to a woman, and they were a man, was the cause of their issue, then maybe they should get rid of the marriage. So I think, that the authorities would rather change those things, look at the desire for personal change, which a person may have for valid reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But so I mean, I think you're right that there is a dark, there's been lots of really bad stuff, that's happened to people over the years, but that's not what that's not what we're dealing with, or that's not the issue I'm talking about. The issue I'm talking about is,
I think if I may make a like comparison, and I hope it works. Let's say somebody suffers from general sex addiction, and he goes to a therapist. The aim of the therapist is not necessarily to make him not having sex ever in his life again. Maybe not even only having sex in a committed relationship, but it might just be working around why it's maybe destructive for where you are in your life. So, for example, you can, even in homosexuality, you can deal with sex addiction, and that sometimes, not always, but can go hand with a gay lifestyle. And I would say that challenging the gay lifestyle can already be seen as conversion therapy in the future, and that's a danger. I think if you identify, if you're not comfortable with your sexuality, you need help. You need access to help, whatever that might be. And I think it's the responsibility of a therapist to identify what the issue is. And maybe the issue in regards to homosexuality might be social pressures from religious groups, or social pressures, where it's like, you're not really doing it because you feel uncomfortable, you're doing it for other people. And I think if you do a therapy for other people, it's usually not effective. But if you yourself struggle, then I think there needs to be help out there, but qualified help. And I think the problem is that I think conversion therapy can be dangerous, just like most therapies can be dangerous. So they need to be monitored, and they need to be qualified. And I would say, to a certain extent, they also need to be public. People need to know what's happening in these therapies, so that people that are interested know what to expect. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. And I think that what you'll actually find is organizations like, say, the Core Issues Trust, or the IT organizations who are working in this area, what they really want is kind of regulations or best practice established.
Yeah.
And I think that any of these therapists, one of the first things that they would check, and I have to stress, I'm nothing about therapy. I've not even had therapy, so I really cannot talk with authority. But from what I have read, one of the first things you would establish is that the person coming to you is doing so out of their own volition. That would be really important, that it's something coming from them. And the therapist listened to talking it's not, they are not even addressing the issue. Isn't even the same-sex attraction. But very often it could be, for example, quite often people who have same-sex attraction did actually suffer abuse when they were younger. So actually the therapist is just dealing with whatever particular issues. There are actually strong links between same-sex attraction and trauma. So
and this is
they're not trying to, these therapists are not like trying to stop or change that same-sex attraction specifically. They're trying to deal with underlying issues, but that may have an impact on the person's same-sex attraction.
I would like to bring in my personal experience. So I would say that my homosexuality was in big parts, but I can't be 100% sure of that, of course. But I would say that my homosexuality was in big parts based on father issues and lack of masculinity in my childhood. And I think that I combined the need for masculine energy with attraction and with sexuality. And so I think I just, through two different but related aspects of your personality, I just matched them together. And I already, through my adolescence and then later on in my 20s, I had the same-sex attraction, but I could not see myself in a relationship with a man. And I also didn't feel comfortable in, let's say, I felt like the only thing I have in common with them is that I have a same-sex attraction, but it didn't feel like a fit for me. And it took me very long to actually open the door back to making experiences with women. And I don't think I would have chosen some kind of therapy, but I think what I would have appreciated would have been a place where I can talk about these things, where I could talk to people that had a similar journey. And I think the core issues trust does that. And just somebody who can help you on that journey. But it's important that at any point you can stop the journey and you can say, okay, I tried this. And I had, for example, a gay friend, and he inspired by me, he said, oh, you know what, I'm gonna see if maybe I can be attracted to women. And he tried, and it really wasn't for him. And I was like, it doesn't need to be for you. I mean, like, it's important to me that you're happy and that you're content and that you're comfortable with who you are. I wouldn't want you to change just because there are pressures from outside. Two things about, one thing about the core issue trust. The core issue trust is based on Christianity and Christian values, as far as I know, which I think is absolutely valid. I see a slight issue with that because it is built on Christian values. Homosexuality is seen as not the ideal path or the path that it should be. So the view or the core issue trust is not neutral on the topic. And I think it's good that the core issues trust exists, but I think there should be a scientific approach, a more psychological approach, where it's very neutral and it just says, we just look at it from a completely neutral point of view, what might be best for you as a patient or as an individual. But because the whole field of psychotherapy and psychoanalysis they're banned from even looking into that. They're not allowed to look into conversion therapy or moving back from homosexuality to heterosexuality. So the government or the society actually blocks a neutral, little bit more scientific approach, and they're really shooting themselves in the foot with that.
I know, it's crazy. I think, people like Core Issues Trust would love there to be research on this topic, or to get funding on this topic, to do research, and it's just a complete no-no. Just anything to do with it, any suggestion of it is seen as flawed, and it's kind of a shame, because what is the problem? And I mean, it's interesting when you talk about your own experiences, because the little bit, that does very much tie in with a little bit of psychology. I was just, I've been reading a little bit about the counseling and stuff, and one of the things I interesting, I mean, there is this, being drawn towards masculinity, maybe because you were alienated from your own father. But there is another, one often hears about how gay people are bullied when they were younger. But when I was reading this stuff, it actually turns out that, say, for example, a boy gets bullied just for whatever, because he is, perceived as being less masculine. He's probably, it's not that he's gay at all, but it's actually the bullying which causes him to feel alienated from his peers and seek out masculinity. And then as his sexuality develops, his search for masculinity becomes sexualized. So it's not that gays are bullying, it's that bullying like that can produce homosexuality. But these are all, really important questions which need looking at. And, but the narrative that people are told to accept, and counselors are even told to tell their clients, is that, you were just made that way, or you're just born that way. But there is no evidence, almost no evidence to support that. If you want to understand it, you will do much, you'll get more understanding by looking at environmental factors, and it's tricky. I mean, and I kind of it's true that, I mean, the Core Issues Trust is Christian and comes from a Christian perspective, and it's very good that they're there, but I
think it makes it difficult for people that just don't choose a Christian path.
Yeah.
If there is somebody out there who struggles with their same-sex attraction, but he isn't Christian and doesn't want to choose a Christian path, there needs to be help for them out there as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, of course, Core Issues Trust are very happy to work in, with people Christian, but they obviously, if you aren't Christian, you might, you may be hesitant about going with Core Issues Trust. So yeah, it would be good if more counsellors could do it. And but that I think for me, why I got really interested in this topic is because of the whole political implications of it, and where it's all coming from, and the sort of the kind of ideological narrative behind it, and the whole these ideas that we want getting rid of heteronormativity, getting rid of the family, getting rid of the idea of male and female. And if you study kind of ideological development, then you can see this, it's this whole, Frankfurt School Marxist agenda, and the reason that they're so kind of angry about any attempts to move away from homosexuality is because it's a direct contradiction of that move towards this kind of brave new world where we don't have heteronormativity, and where the nuclear family as we currently understand it no longer exists. I mean, the idea is
do you see the danger in conversion therapy?
When you say, do I see the danger in conversion therapy, what I'm talking about is simply therapists dealing with people who, for whatever reason, may want to explore their sexuality, which may, they don't even, they may not be happy, say, in being, because there's quite an emphasis on having a gay identity. They may just want to move away from a gay identity. As you say, the Core Issues Trust is about helping you establish network, understand where you're at. So in terms of Core Issues Trust, or in terms of counselors dealing with people who are sex attracted and who want to explore that, no, I don't see any dangers in conversion therapy.
I would say I do. I would say I do if it's not monitored, and if there are no standards.
Because of course, I think there should really. When I say that, even the Core Issues Trust.
Just a second, because
absolutely, I would agree with that.
Because I would say that, for example, let's say that an organization, and I'm not talking about the Core Issues Trust at all, but like in the past, if there is an organization that, for example, makes money with working with people, they have an invested interest in having more customers. They might encourage faith groups or parents to send their children there. And that can create like a climate where, as in the past, people were pushed into that with a negative outcome. So I think that's a realistic danger, and that needs to be talked about. But I think it's the same way, for example, if you're gay, or if you think you're gay and you enter the gay community, the same thing happens. You are being indoctrinated into a gay lifestyle, which can be incredibly damaging and dangerous. And I would hope on both sides that there's actually somebody who makes sure that you are safe on your path to find your own self. So I to be honest, I wish there was, for example, in the LGBTQ community, there was like a conservative group that says, okay, here are the dangers, and just because something is fun doesn't mean it will be fun forever. And so almost like an LGBT specific sex education or lifestyle education. And I would want the same thing from conversion therapy. Just somebody who says, if you want to go to a therapy, here are some things that you have to look out for. If they want to push you in one direction, if they don't listen to you, then don't go there. Because
I completely agree with you that there should be guidance, and there should be monitoring, and there should be best practice, just as there is with any counseling and therapy.
Yeah.
But I have also heard of churches or religious groups, I mean, which push people or make people feel bad about their sexuality. On the other hand, I've also heard gay people say, for example, that there was one guy I was listening to talking, and he was saying how he had his Christian life and he had his gay life, and he would do them on different evenings. And then one day he decided that he didn't like this, contradiction and hypocrisy. So he told each group about his other life, and he said that the Christian group were accepting of him, and it was the gay group who were really rejected his desire to be Christian. What I'm saying is that you know, on one hand, you can get, I have heard, although I've heard it secondhand, but, you know, apparently you can get this, you are talking, you know, this real conversion therapy where young people are forced to reject, and that is so, it's so bad, because it's not just that it doesn't help, it will just put them deeper into whatever dark place they're at. It's just going to make it darker and worse and everything like that. But at the same time, I think one of the real dangers of what's happening at the moment is that this ban on conversion therapy, which I think has happened in Canada, the Bill C-16, and then Canberra in Australia, is that it is actually imposing on religious freedom, you know, freedom of religious belief. And, you know, in Orthodox Christians believe that, you know, the men and women are made for each other. God created us male and female, and that's how we're supposed to be. And that doesn't mean that you will be rejecting of homosexuality, but you would say to a gay person, well, you know, we accept you, but it's not sort of how, it's not God's best plan for you, or something like that. And there is
just to cut in there, you made me at one point aware of the, how's it called, the body of Christ? No, the spirituality of the body.
Yeah. Theology of the body.
Yeah, a theology of the body. Exactly. And I watched some of their content, and there was also like a gay man who talked about it, and he's still gay, or he's still same-sex attracted, but he lives in celibacy now. And of course, that might sound very extreme to people, and I completely understand that. And I don't think, I think if you have to really force yourself to it, and if it's not for everybody. But when I started dating women again at the age of 32, since then I have had a journey, and I used my bisexuality as an excuse that I can't have a committed relationship, and said, well, because I have an attraction to men as well, which a woman can't give me, I would have to be allowed to sometimes do something with men in the relationship. And at one point I realized that was a really cheap cop-out, because when you are straight and in a relationship, I mean, that doesn't mean that your mind doesn't wander and doesn't say, oh, I would have, maybe I could have sex with this woman or with this woman. And at the same, so I realized it's the same thing. You restrict yourself to one partner. You restrict yourself to one partner, and you let that be enough. And I have to say, since I came to that conclusion, which wasn't too long ago, I feel much better. And I'm not afraid to leave my homosexuality behind. I will still have same-sex attraction. I think it is reduced, but I don't have to live it. I mean, if I'm in a fulfilling heterosexual relationship, marriage, I don't need that other bit. But for different people, there are different ways. I mean, maybe you want to change over to heterosexuality. Maybe you just want to reduce your promiscuity, and just say, you know what, I'm going to be in a committed Christian gay relationship, which exists, of course. Or I live in celibacy. There are many, many different paths to deal with sexuality, if connected to religion or not connected to religion. But these paths should be available. When I first started dating women again, and I talked about it, like in gay circles, I was attacked, and like there were some people that said people like me should die.
Really?
Yeah. But there were also a lot of people that were in support of me and said, I support you in whoever you love. By the way, I do read the comments. So if you have any comments, that's appreciated. If you want to write any comments, and we have one here, asked by the Scottish Family Party: does conversion therapy work? Belinda.
Do you want me to say something?
Yes, I can say something afterwards.
Okay. I feel really just the term conversion therapy, it just puts it, because I kind of want to say no, that doesn't work. But does having therapy and talking to a counselor about your sexuality and trying to transform your sexuality into a different direction that you're more comfortable with, and can counseling be effective, Christian or non-Christian or whatever? Yes, it can be very effective. It can really help people. Any attempts to change someone, you like, you're homosexual to heterosexual, that's not really, when you read, when you read about contemporary counseling, contemporary psychology, it's not what it's about. It's just about dealing with whatever underlying issues you might have. And it's really interesting, actually, because when you read this stuff, what you find out is just how flexible sexuality is. Sexuality isn't something you were born with it in a particular way. And it's also really surprising, statistics really surprised me in how the majority of people actually who would be labeled as gay have heterosexual attraction. There are actually very few people who are strictly only attracted to the same sex. I don't know if that
I would challenge that. I think
this was a finding which I read, and the findings in academic papers might be different from real life, but that was a finding in a paper. But what do you think about Richard's question, Phil?
I think that you can't. So, for example, if there's an alcoholic and the alcoholic hasn't realized that he's an alcoholic or doesn't see it as a real problem and he is not at the right point in his life, you can send him to any therapy and it won't work because he's not ready to do therapy. So I think as almost as you said, I don't think conversion therapy works, but it can help you. It can help you on the path that you are willing to go. If you are not willing to go, or if I think therapy is something that's supposed to help you, not something that works. Because this is not science. It's not, well, I mean, there can be research, but it's not like math or like chemistry. You can't say this works. And actually, that's the case for any kind of therapy. You can't say it works. You can't tell a client, if you come to me, I will sort out your problem. You can only say, I will try to help you with whatever you deal with, and hopefully it works.
I might be a bit risky sort of drawing an analogy between alcoholism and homosexuality, because actually, alcoholism is, I agree, don't recognize that they're alcoholics, but I think we can all agree that alcoholism is a serious problem that causes a dysfunctional lifestyle, and you can't too easily, whereas you can actually lead quite a functional and happy lifestyle as a gay man and be of creative, giving part of society. So I think
I wanted to compare the your willingness. Like you have to get on the way. If, like, as I said before, therapy only helps if you actually want to change something about yourself.
Yeah.
And even then, I think the therapy can only work with what you bring to the therapy, so to speak. And I would say even in any kind of therapy, there are certain approaches that work better for one person and other approaches that work better for others. That's why I said the core issues trust should have a more neutral counterpart, because it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, they do work. You don't have to be Christian. They do. You don't have to be Christian to be part of Core Issues Trust, but they are coming from a Christian position, but they're very happy, and they have worked with non-Christian people. But it's true. I mean, it's not a field. It is the case that one of the main organizations is Christian, but they do stress that, and I was recently listening to lots of talks, and I mean, it's interesting because, the people talking did always emphasize, look, this is applicable even if you're not Christian. But a lot of the people were Christian who were talking at the conference. And I think, that this does go back to the kind of deeper, like, sort of ideological issues, because in a sense, you could argue that only Christianity, which suggests, well, maybe other religions, but it's a religion which suggests that there is a kind of better way of things, or there is an ideal way of doing things. And if you take Christianity out of the equation, then you don't have any kind of you don't say something, one way of being is better than another way of being, so you're less likely.
But that's I would say that's actually a very important point, because ideally your wish to change comes from an internal feeling that the path you're on isn't what's best for you. But if you only feel that way because somebody else told you, or because you're in a society that told you, it's very difficult to separate your feeling, your own feeling, from the pressure from outside. I mean, I'm a Christian, but my moving away from homosexuality had absolutely nothing to do with Christian faith. Nothing. I knew that God loved me as a person, and I could feel that certain behaviors weren't sinful, but there was absolutely nothing in me that said heterosexuality is the right way. I could feel that homosexuality was a dead end for me. I could feel it inside me. And then later on, when I became more Christian, I was like, that correlates, and it feels right, the teachings, with what I felt already.
That would be actually very perspective where I would come from myself, because I've my youth or whatever had quite a lot of choice, and my lifestyle is not traditional, let's say. My lifestyle from when I was younger, and I kind of gradually got this strange idea that actually marriage is good, and having children in marriage is good, and all these things which actually I never, my own background, I've kind of been married twice, and my children, I won't talk all about, but my lifestyle is not conventional at all. And I've arrived at this place where actually I think this kind of, more conventional setup really, in all kinds of very human ways, makes tremendous sense. It's what helps, it just makes sense. It makes things feel good. And then the place where I can find reflection and reinforcement of that way I feel inside would come from Christianity, because I can't find the things which I attach importance to, I can't find reflected in the culture around me. But then when I start doing research into Christianity, it's like, wow, that is what these guys are saying, you know, all kinds of things which I felt in my life from deep within myself, not from any Christian place at all. Then, but it's like I'm odd because I feel that this is wrong. I'm not going into great personal detail.
No, I completely agree.
Which other people around me didn't feel were wrong. Promiscuity actually was something. This is when I grew up at school. This was really kind of quite encouraged. It was already, you know, I should shut the door there. But you know, there are things that I felt intuitively wrong, which was not from my culture. And then it was Christianity that kind of seemed to have a similar feeling. So
I would say I had to force myself into promiscuity because I felt like I didn't do the gay thing correctly because I didn't enjoy sex, and I was like, everybody else seems to enjoy this, and they're all on the dating apps and all of that. And it took me very long to force myself into meaningless sexuality, which bizarre. But on the other hand, I'm glad that I have all these experiences, and that I actually came to Christianity, or that I would say I'm almost like a scientist who starts a theory or a thesis without assumptions.
yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to try some stuff and see what happens. And then all my feelings, then I came back to like organized Christianity or Bible Christianity, I would say. And I was like, wow, all of this is already mentioned. And I came to this conclusion through lived experience. And then I said, I find this to be true in my life.
Yeah.
Where if you like do these things because the Bible tells you so, you could question, oh, maybe you just believe that because the Bible tells you. And I'm like, no, I tried it. I had the experience, and this is where it brought me. It brought me to everything that is said in the Bible.
Yeah.
In regards to because they want to make conversion therapy illegal, which I think is restricting science. And I find that to be the case in many areas. Environmentalism, race relations. I don't know if you know Brett Weinstein in America, who was a evolutionary biologist, and he looked into race, and he's incredibly left-leaning and as not racist at all. He just looked at differences in races, and he was slaughtered for that, pretty much. And I said, wouldn't you rather have somebody like a scientist, a left-leaning scientist, look into that rather than some white supremacists that use the same data but don't really look at it from a scientific point of view or from a holistic point of view? And again, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. So I think with conversion therapy and environmentalism, I think what we need is actually diversity in science. I think we always need to look into counter arguments, even in areas where, let's say, that agree with us. We have to look into the other side. You can't just say we are right because we believe we're right. No, you have to say, what does the other side say? It's crucial.
Yeah.
And I think so. People said that first homosexuality was a mental health issue. Then homosexuality, you were born this way. Then they say it's a mix of nature and nurture. And I want scientists to really look into it, just simply because I'm interested. I'm like, maybe it's imbalance in hormones in your mother or something. Like, I find it fascinating. I am aware that there are dangers in this research. I mean, the Nazis used real research to do atrocious things. And I think similar things happened all over the world, where they used abortion for pretty much genocide and stuff like that. And so it's very it. All these things might be dangerous, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't look into them. That means we have to look into them, but being conscious that it could be abused.
Yeah.
And there need to be some safety precautions, that it is not abused to marginalize people or to incarcerate people or whatever. Oh, Richard is coming back.
Hello. I've got so many things I would have loved to have picked up on, but there's not going to be time for all of them. For about the last 10 minutes, I've been thinking, shall I come in now? But it was so interesting. I've let But just a couple of things. I think that what you were saying earlier on about the fact that people bring up old treatments and use them to discredit the idea. I'd never really thought about that before, but that's a really good point. That's exactly what they do. It's like saying, trying to treat people for such and such a disease. People used to use leeches for that. Yeah, but they don't anymore. I think the idea that you can go to a counselor to change any other aspect of your life, rather than you can adjust any aspect of your life to fit in with sexuality, but the sexuality is like the fixed rock that can't be moved. That was a really interesting point. Now, one of the things I wanted to say, we were saying about regulating the practice. All counselling is regulated. Professional counselling is regulated in a sense as well. My concern with that would be that the definition of conversion therapy, for example, from the Scottish Trans Alliance, that would include if a young person said to you, I'm a boy, but sometimes I feel like I'm a girl, really. And if someone were to say to them, oh, okay, I'll pray with you about that, so that feeling will go away. As far as they're concerned, that's conversion therapy. Mm-hmm. So I think if there's going to be regulation of it, it needs to be regulation on it, if you like, on our definition, rather than this sort of any incredibly broad sexuality and gender identity definition.
Richard, the problem is when I say regulations, I would say regulations created by sensible people from a centrist and non-idealistic point of view. But unfortunately, it seems like that doesn't exist anymore. Now, most regulations almost exclusively come from a pretty far left-leaning point. So we need to find a middle in society again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that best practice guidelines, might be a better way of putting it. And the fact is that at the moment, the only approach that is allowed is affirmation, and this ties in with the whole gender identity thing. Your 12-year-old girl says, well, actually, I think I might quite like to be a boy. Affirming it is actually the worst thing you can do. You might actually look into the reasons why, and sometimes it could be indicative even of having experienced abuse or whatever. You need to look at that is actually a sign of another problem. Yeah. You should look into it and deal with it. But the only approach you're currently allowed is affirmation. Yeah. So and it's only with, you don't affirm somebody's depression or anything like that. But if somebody has same-sex attraction that for whatever reason they're not comfortable with, or somebody thinks that somebody has gender dysphoria, you have to affirm it. So I think just getting rid of easy guidelines and having functional guidelines might be a good start.
Yeah. So just one last point I'm interested to hear your response to. I mean, the opponents of conversion therapy, they try and make out that their concern is it harms people. Whereas to me, it's apparent that's not really the concern. The real concern is that they object because it implies that there's something wrong with homosexuality, that it's either there's a moral issue or it's not the way it's supposed to be or whatever. And I think that's the real issue, is its implication that there's something like suboptimal, if you like, not ideal about homosexuality. And that's why it gets so fraught. Do you think that's the case? Do you think that the alleged harms does a red herring?
I think that the alleged harm in contemporary society, yes, I agree that there are some particular issues somewhere, but I don't think I think the alleged harm is a red herring, and I think it is just because it challenges this whole, the whole idea is to smash heteronormativity and to move in this direction where there's no different homosexuality, heterosexuality, it's all one big kind of soup, and it does imply a criticism in some, how could anybody, homosexual, it's so fantastic being gay, how could anybody not want to be gay? It's, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I have to say I understand the fear of LGBT activists that with conversion therapy and something similar, you could brand homosexuality as something problematic, or it could go back to that it's a mental health issue, which it might or might not be. I think I understand their fear, because if you say, let's say, we can heal you, then it does send out a message. I understand their concerns, and I think they are justified, but I don't think that should be that is a reason to ban conversion therapy. It's just a reason to be careful with it and to make sure that a marginal or a group of society is not being bullied and marginalized, but those people who want to move away from that should still get the help. So I'm a little bit the centrist here. I really think that I understand the fear, but fear alone should not restrict research or help that is available out there.
Right, thank you, Roger. What a sensible, balanced bunch we are in the Scottish Family Party. Right,
I think so too.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. Our time has flown by as usual. So thank you very much for sharing with that. And I'm sure we'll see you back on the show before too long. So thanks very much. And to everyone else, thanks for watching.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Richard and Belinda.
Thank you, Richard and Phil, for inviting. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
that was great. Yeah. Thanks.